Hi friends, I'm Maratha from Easy Approach and it's the 29th video of Flutter video series. In this video, we'll talk about data persistency a bit more. That is, how can we store the data permanently so that even the application is closed and reopened, we can get the same data. So far, we have learned shared preferences for storing data permanently. But as I said earlier, we use shared preferences to save relatively small amount of data, like flags and really small information. But for storing a comprehensive data, we have SQLite. So basically, SQLite is a database which stores data permanently but in a local device. So if you want to keep the data locally but permanently, then you can use SQLite. Now let's see what package we are going to use in this application for the support of SQLite. So basically the package that we are going to use for SQLite support is this sqflite. And you can go in the installation tab. There you can find the dependency that you must need to add in your pub spec. So now let's copy it and you can paste in your pub spec.yml file. Just go inside the project directory where you'll find the pub spec, and now after Cupertino icon you can just paste this line and you must click here packages get in order to get this package. Now this sqflite package supports all the SQL raw queries, and it also provides basic functions like for inserting and to do query. So you can either use a raw query or you can use the function that's provided by this package. Now I want to make an application something like to-do application where I will store all the tasks of the user that will be provided by him. So in order to save all the tasks of the user, we must need to have a task model as well. And secondly, we need to have an SQLite helper class as well, where I will connect the app to the database and will query the database. Now firstly, let's make a task model. So go inside the lib directory and just make a new dot file and give the name anything you want. I'm giving it task model, and just make here the class header. And inside this, I'm just gonna make only one field, which would be the name of the task. But you can have any number of fields you want. But for the simplicity, I'm just having here one field. So just make here one field like final string name. And now you have to make the constructor. And inside this, you can pass this dot name. So it would create the class for the task model. Now there's one more thing that we need to do. Actually, whatever we save in SQLite, we save it in the form of map. So we must need to make here a function that would convert the task model into map string value form so that we can insert it into the database. Now let's make a function. The type of the function, the return type of the function would be map string comma dynamic, and you just have to give the name of the function like toMap, and here you just need to return the map. So as we have just one property in this task model, so we can create a map in which we would have only one property, that is name, and here we'll pass this dot name. So this would create a map and it will return the map. So we use here dynamic. It's because it could have any type as a value. So in this task model, we just have one field, but in any other, we could have any number of fields, and we could have different types of the field. So that's why we have used here dynamic. So that's done with this. We have done with the task model, and now we have to make the SQLite helper class. Now let's create a class for the database helper. So let's give a name of this class. You can give any name. I'm giving here to do helper. And inside this, you first need to create the instance of the database, and the type of that instance would be database, which is from sqflite package. And now you have to write the function that would initialize this instance. So as we'll be calling a future which is called open database from the sqflite package, we need to make this ordinary function a future. So let's write here future of white and give any name like init database, because we'll be initializing the database in this function. And we need to use the await keyword in this function as well. So in order to use the await keyword, we must need to write here async. And now we can write the code for initialization of the database instance. Now you have to write here db equals to, and you need to use here open database, which is a future. And now as it is a future and you have to wait this future to return the value, you have to use here await keyword. And now you have to provide path of the database file here inside this open database. And in order to provide the path, we are actually adding or importing here the package, which is actually path, which is actually this file path dot dot. And in order to use a join function that we are just going to use, we are actually importing this. And now we have to use here join. I will tell you about it more. This join function actually joins two different strings and make a complete path to the file. So firstly, we need to give here the directory or the path where the database file should be saved. So you can use here get database path. And as it is a future, you have to use here await as well. And now you have to give the second string, which is actually the name of the database file. So you can give any name, my database.db. And what this join will do, this would join this file name and the path where this file should be saved. And in the result, it would create the complete path to this file. So you have to do this. And now there is one function which is on create, and here you need to pass the db. Actually, you have here db and version of the db, and inside this you run or you give the statement or the query which needs to run whenever the database is created first time. So we basically normally give here the on create, or we normally give here create query. And now here you need to return db.execute. And here you need to write the create table query. So this query would be called only for the first time when this open database is called. And it's better to give the name in variables. Make here final string, table name. So this should be to do. And let's give column 1, column ID actually. So it would be auto incrementing integer ID. And there's one more column, which is actually column underscore name. And it would be the name of the to do. So now let's create the table. So you just need to pass here the table name. And now you have to use this parenthesis, and inside this you have to define all the columns that you would have in this table. So firstly, you would have the column ID. So you can give here column ID. And it would be auto incrementing. So you can give here auto increment. Primary key. And now the second one would be the column name, and it would be text. It would be a type of text. So you can give here a space text. So we have done with this, and now there's one more thing that you must need to define. It's this version, and you have to give here the name, the number of the version. So you can give here 1 at the first time. And now we have done with this initialization function, and now we have to write the insertion query so that we can take the task from the user and we can insert it into the database. So now let's make another feature for inserting task into the database. So let's make here feature void, and you can give any name like insert task, and it would take a task model as parameter as input, and it should be also we should also use here async, since we will be calling we'll be using the keyword await inside this. And there's one thing that I must clear you. I have created this to do table, so it will be storing all the task inside this table. So this column ID is actually the ID of the task, and this column name is actually the name of the task. So we'll be storing all the tasks into to do table that we have just created here. And now we need to write here the code for inserting the task into this to do table. Now inside this, at first we'll use try block so that we can catch the exception while inserting the data in the database. And now we need to use here db.insert, and here you need to pass the table name. So you can get the table name by using table name variable. And now you have to pass here the value of the task model, but it should be in map form. So what we can do, we can use here task.toMap. This is a function that we have created inside the task model to convert the ordinary task into a map. And now third, you need to pass here the conflict algorithm, because there are some cases when we are actually trying to save the same information that we have already saved in the database. So you need to tell the database sqflite that if you encounter any sort of conflict, what you need to do. You have different options, like you can replace the new record with the existing record, you can abort the operation, and you can have many other options as well. But I'm here using conflict algorithm.replace. And there's one more thing. As we are using here task.toMap, so we are actually inserting this map inside the to-do table. So this is actually the column name for the task, and it is here the column name for it. So this two names should be same. So we can do one thing. We can copy this and we can change this literal to this, and now this is good. So we are basically we have done with this, and now we need to catch the exception if we encounter any, and we need to print it so that we can check it and we can make it correct. So we have done with this feature that will insert the value, that will insert the task into the to-do table. And now we need to make another feature so that we can read all the inserted tasks and we can show in some sort of a list. And now we need to make a feature to read all the tasks from the database. So as we'll be getting the list of all the task model, the return type of this feature will be list of task model. And now we need to give the name of this feature, like get all task. And now we need to use here async, since we'll be using the await keyword inside this feature. And as I told you that we store in the database in the form of map. So when we get the record or when we get a single row from the database, it would also be the map string comma dynamic. And since we are query for all the records, so we'll be getting the list of map. So we can make here a variable list of map that is string comma dynamic. The column name would be of a string and the data type of the value would be anything. That's the reason why I use here dynamic. And you can give here some name like all tasks. And now inside this, you have to use here another angle bracket. Inside this, you need to call here db.query. And you need to give here the table name. So the table name is here we save in this variable. And since it is a feature, we need to use here a wait to wait for this feature to return the value. And this would return all the rows in this task. So we can use it later. Since we are getting the list of map, as we know each row in the SQLite database in Flutter is actually a row, but we need to return the list of task model. So we basically somehow need to generate the list of task model from this existing list which is of map. So we can use here a function which is called a list.generate. And you first need to pass here the length of the list that you are going to generate. So we basically need to have the same length as we have in task list. That's actually of map. So we can pass here task.length, and in here you need to pass the function, and here you can get the current index of the item of this list. So now we need to map the map actually into the task model. So what we can do, we can return here a task model correspond to the current item of the map, and we need to use here name. And we need to get the current we need to get the name of the current map. So we can use here tasks, and here you can pass the I to get the current map, and to get the name you can pass here the column name. And now we haven't defined the ID field in this task model because we actually don't need to insert it, but we actually need it to show it on the screen. So we can do one thing, we can make another field here, int ID, and we can pass here inside this constructor so that we can initialize it, but we don't need to define in this map, since we don't need it to insert because it's auto incrementing. But we need to save here, and we need to show it in the list when we call this get all task. So now we can use here ID, and now we can get the ID by getting the current map that we have received. That's actually a raw of query, and we can pass here column ID. That's actually the column name, and this would generate the list of all the tasks that's actually transformed from this map. So now we just need to use here return. So this is it. We have done with all the futures, and we now need to make some UI so that we can call all these futures. So what I'm doing, I'm making a simple UI. So I'm doing it a little faster so that we can save the time. You have already learned whatever I'm gonna make. So I've done with the UI. So I have designed a very basic UI. I have a scaffold widget, and inside it I have a container with a 32 padding, and we have a child of a container that is a column widget, and inside column widget we have 4 different widgets. The first one is the tags field widget, in which we'll take the input from the user, that would be the task, to insert. And here I have associated a controller as well to get the tags from this tags field. So this is how you first initialize the text editing controller, and you can associate it so that you can get the tags from it in future. And I have a flat button here as well, that is of insert. So whenever the user would insert or would tap on this button, we will take the tags from this controller and we'll insert it into the SQLite database. And here I have another flat button, which is to show all the tasks that has been inserted so far. So whenever the user would tap on this button, we'll fetch or we'll get all the records from the database and we'll show it into the list view. And here at last I have a list view where I have used list view.separated, and inside it we have an item builder, and we have returned list style. And what I'm doing, I have made here a task list. So now for now it's empty, but we'll get it once the user would tap on this show all tasks. We'll get it from the database. And I have just given here ID and name, and we have just given here item count to the task length. For now it's 0, so you can see there is no item on the screen. And now what we need to do, whenever the user would tap on the insert, we need to get the text from the text editing controller, and we need to make a task model, and we need to insert it into the database. Now let's move forward and make this functional. So what we need to do at first, whenever the user would tap on the insert button, we need to get the text from this text field by using text controller, and then we need to make a task model, and we need to send it to the helper class so that it can insert. So firstly what we'll do, we'll just get the text from the text controller, and we'll make the task model. So what I'm doing, I'm making here a task model object, which would be the current task to insert. And now you can initialize it inside the on press. You can just call task current task, and just call here constructor. And you can get the text from controller by calling .text. And now you need to access this insert method. So you need to first make the instance of to do helper. So I have missed here a constructor of to do helper. So let's make a constructor. And inside this, you need to call this init database, so that it initializes the database. And now you need to make the instance of the database of the to do helper class actually. So you can make here final to do helper. And just give here so this would create the object, and now you can access the methods that's actually inside this helper. So now firstly we need to access the insert task, and we need to pass here the task. So you can just say use here current task. So I have inserted here, and now we need to do another thing. Inside this we need to just call the we need to make a list of task model here, and just name it anything like a list. And you need to call the get all list method that's actually inside the to do helper, get all task actually. And as this is a future, you need to use here await. And since we are using here await, we need to make this async as well. So this is good. And now what we can do, we can use set state. And as we are using this task list in the list view, so we need to update this. So we can update this by using task equals to list that we have just received. And I think there is a slight mistake in the create table query. We can rather write this. First we need to write here integer, then primary key, and then auto increment. So this is it. Now we need to rerun this application. So now if I rerun it, and let me open the console so that we can see if there's any exception. And you can see here it's giving some error, syntax error near auto. So let me go inside this. Oh, we should not give here a space in auto increment. So now if I rerun it, so it's successfully run. And now if I give any task to insert, like making videos, and now if I click on insert, so you can see there is no error in the console. So it means it has been successfully inserted. And let me give something else like reading, and click on insert. And now if I click on this show all tasks, it must show all the tasks in the list view. So you can see here all the tasks in the list view. And now as I said, this is actually stored permanently in the application, even though it is local, but it is permanent. So now if I close the application and reopen it, so the application has restarted again, and we haven't this time after the application has opened successfully, we haven't yet inserted any of the item. We have just 2 items that we have inserted before we close the application. So it must show all the previously inserted task here in the list view when I click here on show all tasks. So let's click here. You can see all the previously inserted tasks that we have inserted before we close the application. So let's insert again something like something. And if I click here show all tasks, it must show the new task. And again, if I close the application and reopen it, again it will show the same result. So this is it from this video. So in this video we have learned a very important topic, that is of data persistency. If you want to save the data permanently but local to the device, you can use SQLite, and it's very easy to use, and it's just a basic where we just created the database or table and we just inserted into it. So in the next video we'll learn more about this, and we'll explore a little bit more about SQLite database. So if you haven't subscribed my channel, please subscribe my channel, and if you have any suggestion, any comments about my video making and how can I increase the quality of videos, then please comment below so that I can make it more easy for you to learn. So if you haven't subscribed my channel, please subscribe my channel and share my videos with those who want to learn Flutter with easy approach. Thank you for watching.